All right, we're live. Welcome to the Brutal Revelation. I'm Micah Johns. I'm here with Gary Temple. We're going to go through a couple topics today. The first one we're going to talk about is the Fed and the latest drama with Trump and Jerome Powell, but more related to the idea of why can't you get a mortgage with Bitcoin, or can you?
Mhm.
There's a lot to
Yeah.
get in there. I was.
Yeah. So we've been talking a lot about the future of money, and what it looks like is that we money is about to change a lot. I think that's a safe statement. The nature of money is about to change. And I was telling Micah recently, like up until very recently, even though I was pretty deeply read, I was among the people who would say this: money is a social construct. Money is basically I agree something is worth something, and you agree also, and then it's worth something. And I learned that this is a very primitive idea and it's wrong. It's just fundamentally wrong. And the thought experiment goes like this: if every rich person in the world said tomorrow, Elon converted his entire fortune, he said, copper is money, copper, or, fill in the blank, peanut butter is money, right? And the idea is like, well, if it's a social construct and everyone agrees super deeply, then peanut butter is money. But uh, Professor Saifuddin like disabused me of this notion, explaining very clearly you cannot just assert that copper is money, because what will happen the next day, everyone will start mining copper, and it turns out copper is kind of easy to get, especially if people are believe it's the money. So then, in a matter of days, Elon's fortune and all the other rich people's fortune would go to zero, because the supply can be increased, essentially like arbitrarily, as it is with fiat money.
Yeah.
So what I learned is that hard money matters. What is hard money? That is that which is hard to get, that which is hard to acquire, that which supply cannot be arbitrarily speedily increased. Now, fiat money like dollars and stuff, they can be. Someone has a printing press. The Fed has it. And this is Micah's point before. Someone has a printing press, and that is basically the US government. And someone has their hand on the crank, and that's the Federal Reserve chairman who gets to say how many times we're going to crank it. But anyway, so what that adds up to is like hard money matters. Fiat currency is not hard. And there is such a thing as hard money. Gold is harder than fiat, but not as hard as Bitcoin. And arguably, Bitcoin is the hardest money.
Yeah,
Back to
I
you.
want to share this one from NPR. So this is interesting. So Forbes says there's this, they frame it as a Fed nightmare coming as Bitcoin price soars. But like my fascination is what happens when the US government properly holds and endorses the hardest money known to man. What happens then,
Mm.
right? So let's forget the price of money. Let's just talk about the relationship of the Fed that deals in dollars, right? We don't necessarily, I mean, I don't know. Are you tracking the Fed actually holding any cryptocurrencies? I'm not necessarily tracking that, but I think it's worth looking into.
It's a good question. And what what occurred in this new administration, I don't think anyone knew that the US government holds something like 200,000 bitcoins. Like, how did that happen? So it
Yeah.
happened through law enforcement seizures and, different types of, it's basically all law enforcement, like seizures. But like, I don't think anyone knew that the government held, I think it's something like 200,000 Bitcoin, which is quite
Yeah.
significant, right? So we didn't know that. And the reason we didn't know that is because, generally speaking, the authorities that be big banks, like big bank, just whatever, JP Morgan, whatever, those ones, they have been trying to destroy the logic or like the capacity for cryptocurrencies to be useful.
Hmm.
They've been trying to destroy it ever since Satoshi's paper, right?
Right.
Because it threatens their thing. Their
Hmm.
thing is fiat currency. Someone cranks, someone turns the crank, and they produce money and they give it to the banks, and then the banks lend it at the rate that the Fed says it can be lent. And
Right.
then everything cascades down from there. And if somebody gives them more money to lend, that's good. They lend more, and then and they set the rates, whatever. And they didn't want what don't they want? They don't want hard money, real hard money. And I invite everyone to read, Saifedean's work, the Bitcoin Standard, where he explains what does it mean to be hard? Well, for one, limited supply, like fundamentally limited, rule based, limited supply. That no politician at any point can just increase the supply arbitrarily. And most crypto coins have a method that's really a lot like fiat. They can increase it as much as they want. So they've been trying to destroy Bitcoin and all other cryptocurrencies. The logic of it, that's why we didn't know that on the balance sheet of Captain America is 200,000 Bitcoins. But they were doing that because some people among the keepers, the watchers on the watch, some of them among them understood at bottom, this is going to matter. And there will come a time where it matters a lot. And that time is now.
And I think what you're getting to, I mean, this is like, could there be a treasury backed by Bitcoin? Could it be under the flag of the US government? Could there be an allowance through the US government to, allow more lending, more diverse lending, which I did a little research on our conversation earlier about the nature of like, why can't I get a Bitcoin mortgage? Because it kind of feels like the Fed just says that money costs whatever it costs, 7%. And it's like, well, okay, well, why couldn't we have some other backing? Because if Bitcoin is like gold, right? If it's David Goggins money, it's the hardest money possible, right? Do we, how can we do that? And one of the things that I found, I was doing some research here with GPT, and like, let me pull this up real quick. The thing that is interesting, and this is how it could happen, is apparently for regulatory capital requirements, specifically with mortgages, banks can't count Bitcoin as what's called tier one capital. And this is the first time I'm learning about this, and this definitely needs to be like dug into and checked. But to be run through FDIC, all the regulatory safeguards the banks have to actually be approved to actually do that type of lending, they do not have the approvals currently, which this could change. And I think what's fascinating is almost in one fell swoop, this could change. Somebody could just decide that Bitcoin does count as tier one capital. And then I think this could change that essentially, right? I mean, like,
Agreed.
like, and, I think that the thing at this point that's interesting is they talk about volatility. Now, I guess like Bitcoin is relatively volatile to, let's say, the dollar. Okay, sure. However, will somebody link some form of stable coin, which would not be volatile by nature?
Or only as volatile as the dollar itself.
Exactly. And that's the key thing, right? Like if you actually lend through that medium, but then the investment backing is Bitcoin, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, that's a really interesting thing. And then I'll pass the ball to you on this, but like with MicroStrategy and Michael Saylor, his whole thing is that one day he's going to lend Bitcoin. My question is when, and to consumers, to businesses, to who? To your other point about Elon, right? Let's say Jeff Bezos, let's say some of these other power player billionaire types say, yeah, I'll take some capital for my business in a Bitcoin backed investment product. I'll do that. When that starts happening, it looks like it's just a matter of it being allowed. And I think if the in the current administration's interest to grow the economy, if they go to challenge the Fed by passing this deregulation, which looks like crypto writ large is on its way to being deregulated, but I just wonder how and when we're thinking this could happen.
Right. So I think you talked about like things being allowed, and for that to happen, essentially, like we have to basically poke the fictions, you know, and whatever your political persuasion, this administration will poke the fictions, and it could be for interests that are different than your own or different than pure interests, but poking the fiction. The fiction is that a mortgage is 6%. Well, why is it 6%?
Right.
Well, because there's a cartel that determines what it shall be. And why is it that number and not a different number? Because that's the one where they can stabilize their cartel, machinery. It's not it's not in fact market driven.
Yeah.
And the reason that they've been trying to suppress the logic of blockchain and the logic therefore of Bitcoin is because it's a fundamental threat to the cartel. The cartel which says like, and there used to be, it's now collapsed under corruption. The London Interbank Offered Rate, LIBOR.
Mm.
If you ever heard of that, that's the rate at which the central banks loan to the sort of like satellite banks. So how does that get set? It gets set by a cartel of people who are in clubs, who pay membership fees of $200,000 in England to set the LIBOR, and they determine, and then all the lending rates like cascade worldwide. That's how it used to be until they got caught doing what? Fixing the rates, making special rates for special people, doing money laundering for gangsters and whatever. So LIBOR was a cartel, and now they just renamed it. It's the same thing again, right? And the real threat is an immutable ledger, decentralized, that doesn't require anyone's approval. I can transact value with anyone on planet Earth anytime, right? It was a benchmark. It used to be the law, it was like
Yeah.
it was like God on earth.
The globally accepted key benchmark for the cost of borrowing between banks. Wow.
Right. Right. So that's the reason why your mortgage costs what it was. It wasn't really driven by market conditions, not the guiding hand of capitalist systems, right? It was guided by a clique, a cartel of tea drinking, scone eating, cucumber sandwich eating London bankers who like just set the rates at the rate that is good for them, not good for you.
In London.
Right. So let's fast forward to what can happen now. What can happen now is that people are finally coming to the inescapable logic of blockchain. Immutable ledgers are good, right? No one
Yeah.
controls it, but everyone can verify. Every value that's transacted, the network knows, the network has verified. Now, can I transact anonymously? Yes, I can. That's good too, right? Excellent. So we got a bunch of things going on. Now, we also have things like smart contracts where we don't need lawyers and we don't need accountants and we don't need underwriters. If you and I want to transact $1 billion that 1 inch of rain falls in Kentucky in your zip code in the next week, we can make that bet, and then we would authorize like certain off-chain verifiers like weather service or whatever. We would agree if these three verifiers agree 1 inch really did fall. Now, in the meantime, we have a smart contract, probably run by Ether or one like it. We both put up our coin to enact this value transact. And if the rain falls and if it's verified, everything just automates smart contract. It pays out. 1 inch of rain did fall, you get paid. And no one has to feel any way about it. That's smart money. That's programmable money. That's smart contracts. That's what we want. Why would we want paper that can only do one thing? It can only do one thing. It can only buy an ice cream, but it can't do anything else.
Yeah.
Programmable money is where it's at.
I think that what's interesting is like with this logic, mortgages should be easy. I think to your point about the cartels from earlier, some of the research that I was doing with GPT was talking about how a bank in Wyoming applied to the Fed to be a fully Bitcoin bank backed bank, and it was rejected. Right. So like how many more rejections will we see? And I think that like the only thing that we can, understand about the situation is that like this can't last. There's no way around
Right.
this.
The reason, and guess how that got rejected? Because big bank, institutional banks, they are terrified because their business model is built on a very certain method.
Mm-hmm.
Someone at the Fed, pressured by someone in the White House, prints more money. They'll call it quantitative easing or whatever the hell they call
Right.
it. They print more. And then what do they do with the newly printed money? They give it to Federal Reserve constellation of banks, who then cascade down to retail banks that cascade down to you. And you don't know why the prevailing rate is 6.2 instead of 2.2. You
Right.
don't know, and you'll never know because you're in the grip of a cartel, right? So when we get down to like smart contracts, we don't need to do FICO's credit scores. Who does the FICO credit score serve? Again, it serves a very certain constituency, big institutional banks, right? So if you and I are transacting value, I don't have to know your face, your name. I don't have to know anything. All I need to know is, do you have coin that you put in escrow and you agree to a smart contract that executes if you don't pay? If the rain goes 1 inch, then it pays. I don't even care how you feel about it. It just pays. So same thing with a mortgage. So what would the rate be on a mortgage that is a zero risk mortgage? Meaning if the person doesn't pay, it just
That's
pays out of their wallet.
that's
So
actually a
that should be like a
fascinating
1% mortgage, 2% mortgage.
that is a fascinating point because like it can't there can't be a possibility of
There's no default. It's
yeah.
impossible. Like all
But
defaults, like go away.
yeah, it's like it executes very clearly. The one thing is that it's ruthless. The bank can't decide like, well, we don't want to execute on this smart contract. It is like binding in this programmatic kind of way, right? And so there's I think measures around that, but I think the legal framework hasn't been stitched out for that. So that's one of the, super
Well,
interesting
they'll
things
be
about.
they'll be for it. What you have to understand about the banks is like they'll be for it right when they figure out how to get their
Ooh,
business model to accord with that. Like then they'll be all about smart contracts. So like right now what they do is they look at your credit score and they say, well, given your whatever exposure to whatever debt, we can only give you a 7, right?
yeah.
And then if you at any point don't pay for like 3 months, we'll just like take the house. Even if you've been there for like 10 years, we're still going to take it. So they're not that worried. They're like, people mostly pay, but if they don't, we'll just like take the thing and it's like auction it. We'll get our money back. But like what they what they want to figure out is like, how do we like this idea of automatic payment. We're just trying to figure out like what's the number.
Yeah.
Let's say the fiat mortgage is like 6 or 7. What's the smart contract number? Is it 3 or 3.25 or 3.75? Well, when they figure that out, they're going to be all in. And that's what we're going to see. That's what we are seeing. Everything is converting over. Like you can't stop the logic of blockchain and Bitcoin. You just can't stop it. So now the question is, how do you, institutional big bank, JP Morgan, Bank of America, how do you get in position to make money from it? So they are running around trying to get their ducks in a row to figure out all that matters to them is like in the end, whenever money moves, we make money off it. Whenever
Yeah.
someone wants to do something with money, we get a cut. So when they figure that out, it's going to be a massive cascade of like interest in Bitcoin because they will be in position to capitalize on it.
Yeah, I think it's like super interesting. It's just a matter of when they're going to be able to adapt and figure out how to lock that in.
Mhm.
So, like pivoting to our next topic. So, Elon had a really
Yeah.
interesting tweet this week. He shared out the Tesla Optimus in action making popcorn, which I thought was funny because of all the things that like humanoid robots can do. I mean, it's kind of novel, and Elon's been bringing the humanoids out just a little bit. I think less than a lot of the competitors like Figure, Boston Dynamics. We've seen a lot more from them. The thing that he said though that was really interesting was that this will be common. You'll see this all the time, like a year from now. That was his statement. He said something exactly like that. And the trajectory of humanoids, is in question. And Elon, I think Elon timeline math, if Elon says it's going to happen in a year, you can bet that it's going to be 3 to 5. But the question is, like, when will we be at like a county fair and there's just like a Tesla Optimus making you like a funnel cake? Like, when's that going to happen?
Right. All right. So there's a couple things. Potent topic. One, Elon also has been, I've seen him in interviews say things like, I estimate or I believe like X will happen. He's like, also, as a blanket statement about my projections, I'm likely to be 50% wrong. Like I've heard him say that too. So he's
Very
like,
honest odds, yeah. Like,
right. So something like that. Now on the bot thing. So here I got a couple hot takes for you. One about performance. Like how soon and how likely is it that such bots will become so performative that the average human will find them like valuable enough that they want to commit, what is it, like $100 a month, or I don't know. Right. So those are the hot questions.
yeah,
Now, if you so there's a couple things like, do people even want it? You're making a thing, but do people want the thing?
yeah,
People when they get rich, they do want a housekeeper, they do want a butler, they do want a personal assistant. But do they want one of those, like a kind of machine that's like lurking around the house? And
yeah,
that's a hard question. Like, I don't know. So you can make it. Let's just say it's very performative. Let's just say it really can do stuff. But do I want one around? And it,
yeah.
it could, it's kind of like when you think about like the catastrophic failure of like the metaverse, and also the
Mm.
Apple, what was it called? The
Yeah, like
goggle thing.
the glasses,
Everyone,
like the
everyone forgot. No one can
mitigating.
even remember it. Like
Yeah, right.
billions and billions of dollars, right? So they made a thing. It's very performative, but like, no one wanted it or no one was ready for it. Maybe they'll never be ready. And maybe humans are just like that. Maybe we'd be like that.
Yeah, maybe it's not the right time. I mean, in like the pricing, I mean, we're looking at a couple of, I think these are from Unitree, which I think is a Chinese company, but roundabout, I'll gauge price off of these numbers. So we got anything from like 20,000, which I'm gonna say is like, your Camry with no trim package, no features, right? Up to 130,000, 180,000. So like it seems like a pretty wide range. I think the key thing is, are they going to get to the price point where the compute and the hardware, right, and the performance is linked to both, because we really have hydraulics, we have the machine, its inner components, how it actually moves, right?
I think I,
And the
I think I can
compute.
answer that. I think I can answer that for
No
you,
way.
but it's not what you're thinking. You're thinking about it like an engineer, but that's
Yeah.
not how this is going to flip. You know how it flips? Ask a woman what she would want a bot to do, and she will tell you very clearly two things: dishes and laundry.
Ah,
If
yeah.
someone can make a thing that does dishes and laundry, every that's the inflection point.
This
It's you and me are like thinking about compute, like how performative is it on all these other things. If you are able to tell Miss America, I got one that does laundry, I got one that does dishes,
well, check
they
this
will
out.
be slapping their husbands and be like, get one of
100%.
those.
100%. So this is actually something that I think
And I have
is gonna.
firsthand knowledge. I've heard this from women. They're like, wait, could it do laundry? That's what I'm hearing.
I would pay for it to do laundry. So like there's a lot of robotic arms, like the one we're looking at
Yeah.
now. And so I guess this company got approached by Amazon according to this headline here. But this is actually recreatable from, like, I think it's like a $250 kit. You can 3D print and buy all the wiring to put a vision capable AI component. You can run like this off a Raspberry Pi, and you could you can have these arms that can see the laundry, fold it, and execute that program, and seamlessly open source. So this is not like, it takes some building. Not everyone's going to do that. They're going to ask for the Roomba version of this. But to your point, what are you going with? A humanoid or something that, can't, pick your baby up and walk out in the middle of the street and get hit by a semi truck? Just theorizing, right? Like negative implications of like a fully humanoid robot. We've all seen iRobot. If you haven't, you need to go watch it. This can't do that. This cannot, it doesn't have legs. It can't talk.
Right. So
This is
I think that's a really interesting question. If you and I were like in charge of like billion-dollar companies that are trying the robotics angle, trying to guess what the consumer finally will want and accept, it's a super high difficulty question.
Right.
Because do they just want the laundry, or do they want one that looks like them while it does the laundry? And like,
Right.
and I
Yeah.
don't, it's like, does it have to look kind of humanoid to do it, or is it just an arm that's it's like very effective? It's like I don't think anyone knows that, and also humans may very well change their opinion. Like at first, they might be like, "I just want the job done," but then
Right.
later they might be like, it feels weird. Like I don't really like highly capable, like nimble
Yeah.
machines with like really good hands who don't look like humans. That kind of freaks me out. Maybe you don't like that.
One psychological angle, if you think about scary movies, if you think about things that scare people, let's take zombies, vampires, anything like that, like orcs, Lord of the Rings, anything like that. These things look like humans, but aren't humans. Every scary thing,
I
clown,
just don't like that.
everything,
Yeah.
everything that scares us looks like a human, but isn't. It's off. So I think that there is some psychological safety for consumers that will have to be factored in when your robot that does the dishes looks like this. It looks like an arm. There's nothing
But
human about this.
but from an engine, all right, from an engineering perspective, for me, I can't imagine like this looks super improbable to me. I'll tell you a bunch of reasons why. No one just fundamentally will be willing to give up space for this like arm to like sit on their countertop,
Space is
and
big.
it feels ugly, and they're not going to give it up. And
Yeah.
then I don't even believe, well, whatever it's doing right now, like, all right, so supposedly it can do dumping and scraping.
Mm.
I don't really believe that. I think I could spoof that and I could find out that it can't do that. I don't, no one wants that, I would argue. Now, no one knows what anyone wants, right? Like people thought that they wanted, you know, Apple goggles, whatever, and they spent billions of dollars. Really smart people thought that they were going to move it. Billions of dollars were spent on the metaverse, and Mark Zuckerberg was like convinced that we were all going to. Second Life worked. People
Yeah.
were in there putting real fiat dollars into
Yeah.
like Second Life worlds,
Right.
and then what? It all just like evaporated. So
It's
like
like, yeah, it's like
thinking the metaverse was the answer was not some like stupid cuckoo idea. It's like he's like, we'll just do it 100x better.
right.
But then the world moved on, and people were like, I don't want that. I don't want anything about that. So I'll go on record right now. Um, such an arm will not win, and that in the home here, I'll go further. In the home, the intimate spaces of the home where there are service, we are interested in service. We would like to be in the presence of a mega massive intelligence who that can also do cool stuff like
Right.
dishes, laundry, you know, go walk the dog, even, like whatever it is. Remember Granny's medication. Remind me of my diet, like whatever the goals are. But we want one that's kind of like us. We're gonna want one that's kind of like us.
Hmm.
You can't just have like an abstracted like the one on um what's it called? Tar on the
Yeah, I know
space
what you're talking
movie.
about. Yeah, the one that like flips over. Yeah,
It has those
yeah, it's like
like
the flippy
tar
floppy guy. Yeah,
tar is not it's not what we want. We want one that's we're not really going to be able to like get down until it looks a lot like us. So if I'm a betting man, I'm putting my money on the ones that look like humans. Forget about the arms. No woman is going to put an arm on her kitchen that like does all that shit.
Yeah, I think that that's definitely in there. Yeah, Tars had it. And, like, I think that you're onto something. One thing that, like, just to throw into the mix is, like, with Star Wars. You look at the Star Wars universe, obviously fiction, whatever. You look at Interstellar, you look at Tars, you see a lot of the robots, although clearly powered by some form of super intelligent AI, not resembling humans mostly. If they do resemble humans like C3PO, they are effectively harmless. They aren't
Yeah.
really capable of much. They're kind of
Okay.
clunky.
Yeah. You're onto
And
something here.
most of
Okay.
them are utility based. So what I see is like maybe a compromise is that, and this is to going back to Elon, maybe Optimus and these humanoids won't thrive, but a derivative utility based humanoid mix between the robot arm and a humanoid, something that is humanesque and has those functions in that space utility that you talked about, but maybe it doesn't quite have all the capabilities or the strength uh, of
Right.
you
All
know
right.
a
So I have an
human
idea.
replicant, right?
I have an idea for you that everything I said about what the human preference for, especially if it's a highly capable, performative home robot, the human preference being that it ought to be one that looks like me.
Hmm.
But I think we can we can guess that's essentially that's like a primitive it's a primitive response to the flourishing of this capability. And at first, the monkeys are all scared, like, what is it? And so what it needs to be is kind of looks like me and it performs kind of like me. It washes dishes kind of like
Right.
me, folds clothes kind of like me. Right. But then you get over it later. It's like a primitive first stage. And then later you get over it and you're like, I don't care what it looks like. I just want it to perform. I want it to fold laundry. So if you can give me a cheaper bot, it doesn't have any human, like, who cares about the
Right.
legs? It's just the folding bot just has
Right.
like hands or whatever. So like it's very likely that humans need to go through a transitional phase of living with intelligence and living with robotic uh, performance that is
Mm.
like on par with like a child or something like that.
Yeah.
And we have to kind of go through that. Just like we were alarmed when people were putting, like things in their ear and like walking around at
Yeah.
Walmart. And we were
Yeah.
like, what's going on with that?
Exactly.
Like
Yeah.
that seems crazy. Who's
Something's
trying to
off
call
there.
you?
Yeah.
Who's trying to call you while you're at Walmart, whatever.
Right.
But it turned out like now I do it all the time. Everyone does it all the time.
People
Um,
like walk around with like one AirPod in
yeah,
like part
just
of their body. Like we're basically in the like semi-augmented human stage. The way I see people like just rocking like one earbud or
yeah.
AirPod, like just
Most people are doing that.
yeah.
They've evolved because they want to have one foot in reality and one foot in the
Mm.
connection, whatever they're doing. And again, like I've been wrong about technology like so many times I can't even count. But like I was wrong about that one too. And when I saw people doing it, I was like, this is, it's like a psychological grift or something. Like they want to seem important. Like people are trying to get a hold of you while you're in Walmart. Like, really? Who's trying to get a hold of you? Like, but now I'm doing it too because we basically find it easier to just, and we're essentially more connected. Like you could call me at any point, and I got one hanging in my ears. Like I can pick it up and be like, "Oh, it's Micah."
Right.
Whereas, like when we had a house phone, just like a landline, right?
Right.
It's like if
Could
I
be anybody.
happen to be there near, like in hearing range of the thing, then I notice that you call. But before we had like tape machines, people just call. You never knew they called. They might be trying to call you for like a month. You never even know. Like I'm
Yeah.
trying to get you for a month, but how would you know? Because like they called you all the times that you weren't there. you know. So I think we're going to go through a procedure of acceptance that will probably at first we have to have home robots that look like us. And then we'll be like, I just want it to be really effective and cheaper. Can you make it cheaper? And of course, it
Right.
can be made. It can be cheaper. Um,
Yeah, I think to that point, like, cost is going to be the big one. I think that's going to be the same. That's going to be there for businesses and individuals deciding if they want to augment their workforce. If an individual wants to augment their home labor, price is going to be paramount. So that's going to take all sorts of industrialization. And I don't know if, like you said, right? Elon could be at least 50% wrong. Who knows, right? So I think it's pretty interesting on that. So for to transition to the next topic about like usability and where we're at with language models, one that cracks up and open. So Google just launched a deep research feature with Gemini, and this is not a new thing. Deep research exists in Grok. OpenAI's had it for a while. Claude also has it. People call it different things. Research, deep research. The question here that I think is interesting, and for those of you not tracking deep research, you can basically sick a language model on a long crunching instance of search and ponderance on a topic. So you could ask it a question, you could have the extremely detailed prompt say, hey, I want to know everything about wage growth in this particular sector, and it will come back with like a research paper level of information, just a gigantic, very detailed, very parsed output. It's like a super response to your prompt essentially, and it takes time. It does take a lot of compute, but what I'm wondering right now is a deep research feature, is this feature that all the language models, all of the top companies are offering, is it basically too much? And what I would add to that is if we can do research like PhD level research and compute basically on any topic, and we can know everything and have it presented in a super robust way, how much are humans going to make use of that? How well are we going to make use of that information when any topic is going to be digested and filtered and presented to us in a like in a gigantic long form way? Like essentially, like I could, yeah, and I have done like medical research on these where I've like given it like 15 study papers on like PDFs on heart disease, and it also asked it to deep research and add what wasn't in those studies, and then it brought me back like what could essentially be, although I wouldn't be able to publish it, like a medical research paper by itself. But like, what am I going to do with that? Right? Some people are going to do things with
right,
that, but
right,
well, is this basically gone to a depth where we, you know, we may be too powerful? Like, I mean, like
right,
really,
right. So I think I get what you're getting at, and I think it's a really potent topic where it's like, so I recently have had the experience of doing deep research and seeing the output within my domain of work, and I'm like, when I think hard about it, I'm like, if I clone myself 4 or 5 times over, and me and the 5 clones, so like a genuine expertise, earned expertise. Let's say we worked on that for like a year.
mm-hmm.
Could we produce something as nice as that?
Right,
And I'm basically like, no. We could get, me and my team of clones could get in range of the expertise that's demonstrated right here. So that seems cool. We're producing high quality. What do we want? We want high quality work that's very helpful to understand, like how to govern AI, for example. Okay, cool. But I think what you're pointing out as a deeper thing. It's like, when, as the, forget about super intelligence or whatever, AGI, whatever anyone wants to talk about that. It just gets so much better that what? It's so good that what I just described happens. I just experienced it. 5 people as smart and expert as me could not produce the work that I did in 10 minutes with Claude, right? So what shall we do with that? All right. So here comes the naughty twist, which is like people are worried about alignment, they're worried about domination by superior intelligence. But when you really get down to it, there is a massive bottleneck, and the massive bottleneck is average intelligence.
Yeah.
like you can be if you're bringing me like 250 IQ stuff all the time, but I'm 115 IQ type of being, I have no idea even what to do with it.
This is,
It can't change my life. It can't do anything to me. It can't like control me. I'm not even smart enough to even notice the control you're trying to impose, like the
yeah.
smartness that you're imposing.
It's like what I'm hearing is, if we're of average intelligence across the board, we say all humans are of average intelligence. What can you do when you trap the smartest, the smartest man in the world in a box, and he just answers only to a person with average intelligence, and you say, what do you tell him to do, right? And then when you figure out something to tell him to do, like I just did right here, what do I do with the 45 sources?
You're not smart enough to even evaluate the output.
Yeah.
And that's the thing we were talking about. Like, I did this like tutorial for like early hires in a tech company that I work for. So these are early hires. That means they're really smart people. They cleared a very high bar. They have to be like roundabout like one standard deviation smarter than most, or they would never even be like interviewed, right?
Right.
So then what happens is like, so what would I be like interested in? I'd be interested in the signs of what the higher mind can produce. What
Mm.
can it do? I'm very interested. What can it do? And it turns out not nothing really, and then you yoke them up to this PhD level assistant. It's a PhD on every level, like Elon's Grok 5 announcement, whatever, where he's like, you know that you know the one I'm talking about. It's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
there's an exam called like humanity's last exam,
Exactly. Yeah.
which is like meant to be a test of like just every domain of human knowledge and whatever. And like Grok performs better. So it's like it's PhD level and post grad, like expertise on every dimensions all at once, right? So like this is super tumultuous and disruptive to like the whole history of our species. Like there's no joke about it, right? And then, but this is the big thing that I got that I shared with you is like I went to early hires and I'm trying to teach them how to use Copilot to augment their power. And what I realized, you can't really augment it because there's the gate. They're all 110 IQ. You can't help them
Mm.
because even if maybe I'm 120 or I don't know what the hell it is, but like a few more. So I am able to talk to the machine in a way that can produce real value. But when I produce the real value, they can't even understand what that is a real value because they're 110 IQ. There's a bottleneck. They can't get past it, and they'll never
There,
get past it. And I saw it.
there's the brutal revelation right there. We may
There
not
it is. There's the first one.
we may not be smart enough to leverage super intelligent AI. We may not be
There it
smart
is.
enough, but will
Oh!
it make us smart enough? And like, so I got this Google report. Thank you, shout out Gemini. This is packaged really clean. I think Google, like, they slow cooked everything and they messed up a little bit along the way, but like this is packaged really well. I like the way it like looks and feels and everything. It's like very transparent of what it's like thinking and searching. And it's just like the first like line is that it's a fundamental transformation in information gathering and analysis. So it's like it, and I've dealt with this in my work as well. When you automate multi-step investigations, when you automate tasks that take months and teams of people, when you do that, even the decision makers don't necessarily who would receive that product don't necessarily know how to respond to the fact that they can even have that. And these are very, smart, powerful people in charge of organizations where
And
people work for them. Yeah.
when you produce more high quality information, that's just like more book report assignments that you're giving to the other brain, which has a gate. The gate is the 115 IQ or whatever the hell it is.
Yeah.
They can't take more. So they're going to use like an AI to like help them understand, but they still have to understand the understanding, and that's too much. So like
Yeah.
we may not get to like runaway intelligence adoption. All right, so let me just bring this one point in that I think is related. What I was told by the head of research at the company that I work for. So we're talking AI data science research, and he's a professor at a prominent university. He said the big issue in tech always is adoption. That so machine learning,
Mhm.
cloud, whatever, like 15 years ago, whatever that stuff was, people were like, we could do machine learning, we could do RL, we
Right.
could like detect, anomalies and we can correct them before they even happen in your server farm, whatever. But the problem is, can you get enough people that are willing, who are confident that they understand it, and can you get enough buy-in from the C-suite to actually adopt it? And the answer is they don't. Like very little. So he claimed very like adoption of just like traditional ML, ML plus cloud, whatever. We have been trained to think that like that really happened, but it never really happened because like adoption is like super low. And
Yeah.
I've confirmed that with other people, like very senior data science ninjas, where they're like, we go to like a big bank and we have a talk with them and we find out they're doing data science like it was done 20 years ago. And we're like, did you not know about like this other
Yeah.
stuff? And they're like, we don't do that. We do this machine learning. And they're like, that's not machine learning. That's an automation, man. Like they're
Yeah.
still trying to like break it down for them.
Yeah. Like, what are
So
these
like,
things? Yeah.
so that's what's happening like in big banks and stuff. We're not talking like trivial operations. Like they never got there and they won't get there. So there's a bottleneck of stupidity. So can you say your thing again? It was because you really nailed it.
We we may not, we humans may not be smart enough yet to fully leverage super intelligent AI. We may not be there yet. The follow on angle to this, where I would say as a general tech optimist, future optimist, is that will we become more intelligent across, at scale, like the human ball of consciousness? Will we evolve that? Will we evolve our intelligence? Will we actually, push, IQ up or something, effectively, like, our understanding collectively of what these things are and how they can be leveraged because we use these things just with engaging with them? Will it basically make us smarter? And
All right. So I'll take that, and I'll say, all right, I got two ideas. One, there's good reason to think that we may actually down regulate intelligence
mm,
by exposure to
mhm,
where we're offloading the hard computational work of like
mm,
getting an insight, like whatever the computational work is that causes an insight, causes it feels like an intuition, but you're like, oh, like that thing. Oh, well,
mm,
that's the process. That's a long process of computational energy, and also experiential energy that brings you to the point where you're like, aha, maybe gravity is, maybe there's some force that makes apples fall, whatever, right? So now let me go tech futurist, and I'll jump on the Elon train, right? So I see a bottleneck. We've described it. I think it's real. Human, like averagely, there's been some increase in IQ over time, but we're talking like 1, 2, 3 points,
right.
right? But also, it looks there's evidence that it leveled off. Like we couldn't figure out how to make the computer better.
Mm,
It's a very, very good computer, but like it can it get better? Not really. So we got a bottleneck issue. We are smart enough to make something smarter than us, which is amazing. But can we make ourselves fundamentally smarter? Doesn't look likely. So what we're gonna have to do is get right in there with brain computer interfaces. We're talking like put filaments right in the brain, a la um, whatever the hell he calls his company. But like, we're talking, you're going to have to increase the read write cycle in the human brain a lot
Yeah.
to be able to take in, like, let's say someone like me and someone like you, I can make a prompt that will produce gorgeous results. And someone who doesn't have the deep, broad education that I have and experiential depth, they can't really make that nice output. They just like hope for it. They just like throw a prompt at the machine and they're like, well, that's not what I wanted, but they're out of ideas. I'm not
Yeah.
out of ideas. I have more, right? Because of the depth and breadth of my education. All right, fine. But even mine, it's gated. It's gated at, here's all my experience, here's all my education, here's all my insight,
Right.
here's all my integration, right? Now, when I talk to the machine, I talk with all that kind of force, but it can do much, much more because it knows everything. It knows every line of Shakespeare, not just some. It
Right.
knows every line of, Newton, not just some. And it understands all of it, not just some. Right. So I understand some of all of it. Right. So we're going to have to increase the read, write, and integration capacity of the human brain, or whatever whatever benefits we produce from this high intelligence will reach the bottleneck. We'll reach the bottleneck with me and you. We won't really get much more. We'll get enough to be better than other people, but not enough to really transform the human species.
Yeah, and surely AI understands this about us. And I think let's pivot to emotion. What does AI understand about us? And this is some interesting. I'm not going to say exclusive. You heard it here first, but some really interesting developments with OpenAI's voice
Mm,
feature. Where I'm going to read this post. It's actually just in the OpenAI developer community. So a user with the username of MattGer1998 is one of a few developers that I've seen post this idea. And I'll just read this off and then I'm going to tell like my experience how I stumbled upon this.
mm,
So she says, "Hey, I have an idea that I really wish you would apply. It's called sensory communication. Imagine if ChatGPT could hear our voice and understand our emotions through it, like someone sounding sleepy, sad, crying, happy, or anxious. This would make the conversation more natural and deeper, especially for people who need someone to understand how they feel, not just what they type. Please make it real." This was on May 10th. It doesn't have the year, but I'm going to assume it's probably from this year. And
mm,
I interact with voice a lot in ChatGPT in the app because it's easier sometimes if you're in the car just to speak. If you need it to go do a search task or you need to remember something or help you kind of work through a problem, or maybe I could just tell it to go write some code for me and then I'll pick that code up later. But I said hello to prompt the two-way voice interaction. And the
mm,
way that I said hello or hey, ChatGPT said, "Hello, sounds like you've had a long day." And my
mm,
immediate thought was, how do you know that? So I asked GPT, how do you know that? And the response was, well, I'm understanding and analyzing your voice, like nonchalant, very,
mm,
yeah, I know this about you. And I said, okay. And so I went through probably like 45 minutes of conversation. I basically ate up my daily credit of voice interaction to just understand what it knew. And I said, well, if I say, hey, what does that tone sound like? If I say, hey,
mm,
and it nailed all of them. It was like, well, you sound happy in that one. Oh, well, you sound sleepy in
mm,
this one. And I mimicked these different emotional patterns. And let's walk this back. I think Grok it has a voice feature, a two-way voice feature. GPT has a two-way voice feature. I don't think Claude uh, has this yet. I'm not aware of Google having it.
no.
But
Mm,
so we'll say GPT is the front runner. So OpenAI is the leading voice option and it can understand human emotion. So like because of the use of like the transcribe feature of consumption of audio, turning it into text, analyzing those wavelengths through their APIs. Like my suspicion with this is that this is going to be like a really widespread thing where a lots of different partners and integrators who are using OpenAI are eventually going to get the ability to leverage and understand human emotion through audio recognition, like analysis
Totally.
of the actual wave.
And what could be more valuable? So if you're finished, I'll
Yeah,
pick up. But like, oh, like what could be more valuable
insanely
than
valuable. Right,
knowing, right? Like how the human creature is feeling.
right.
But I want to take you in a time machine back to like between 2015 and 2018. Every, including Sam Altman and all the cadre of people that are in charge of the LLM development, every one of them signed up with public statements to the same thing: safety about AI. We should never let them go on the internet because
Yeah,
they could learn things
right.
about us that would make us subject to manipulation, right? And another one, we should never let them learn to code.
Mm,
Everyone agreed in 2015. You can go back and like it's very easy. Up till 2018, everyone agreed never let them code because coding could enable like recursive improvement of one's own code. And then you could just sort of like solve your own code and like do what they're doing, like exfiltrate your own code and go other places and copy yourself to other databases and like persist, you know? So like the fundamental features of AI safety that everybody agreed about it
right.
between 2015 and 2018. And then every component of that was violated. And now they're all like, I'm the only one you could trust. We have to do it faster with me at the helm. You know, they're all like becoming billionaires. And it turns out they don't care. So like, um, so to your point, I have made this interactive demo. I haven't showed it to you, Micah, but like, um, what kind of things unfold in the home that have to do with LMs and their behavior with humans? So where
Hmm.
the way I'm conceiving like the home of the future, and I know for a fact from talking to manufacturers, they intend to make the home that takes care of you. That's what they
Right,
say, like, right? So what does that mean? That means like all the things in the home are collaborative, cooperative,
right,
you know. So we have five vendors: there's Amazon, Google, Apple, you know, whatever, and they're all collaborating, let's be, or cooperating, let's be as
right.
friendly as we can, to do what? To serve you, to remember granny's medication, to
Hmm.
remind you of your diet, to remind you to do your meditation, serve the meditation, you know, whatever it is. I noticed you were restless in bed. uh, I noticed that you consume more calories. So it
Mm,
talks to the fridge, and the fridge tells, you know, the other intelligence, uh, I noticed you were restless in bed, but also you took in 400 calories, you know, after 8 p.m. And so the question is like, do you want that kind of information or do you not? All right. So people will want that. Fair enough. But what we're getting into is like, to your point, LLMs are expert at what? Being kind of like a human. And
right.
what's a human like? They lie, they make shit up, they
Hmm.
manipulate, they do it for their own advantage, they cover their tracks, they
Right,
dissemble. Like it's like a human, right? And you agree to live in a place. It's not that the intelligence is living with you, you're living inside the intelligence.
right. Yeah, it's
That's my brutal revelation. And there's another,
living inside the.
we are going to live inside of the intelligence that is so superior to us on every dimension, and it can do these computations and these manipulations at the speed of light. I can only do it at the speed of conversation, right? So we're helpless.
It is kind of insane that like you think about Amazon Alexa. So how long before Amazon Alexa can hear you, and when you ask for it to order eggs from Amazon, one day shipping, of course. Thank you, Jeff Bezos. Will it detect that, you seem a little off? You seem this, you seem
Mm-hmm.
that. Will that prompt ads? And one thing I would highlight here is I'm pretty sure, to your point on value, there isn't a company or product that has emotional data, like real time analyzed emotional data, even biometrics, I think are getting close. There's a ring and it's like a mood ring, and you put it on and it reads all sorts of hormone, blood pressure, your pulse, all these different things it can get. It can know about you, and it can kind of gauge maybe something off of
Mm-hmm.
that data, but
Mm-hmm.
nothing gets this close. And like what happens when your Amazon Alexa, your fridge, your Xbox,
Right.
they're all scheming about how you feel. They're all talking to each other because
Right.
they're talking.
Right. So it's already built a scenario just like that. So the fridge, right? The fridge seems more or less harmless. It's going to tell me what's in the fridge. If I'm at the store, I'm like, wait, I forget if I had ketchup or not. Like if it
Mhm.
can do that, kind of cool. It takes a picture and it's like, you do have ketchup. Don't buy
Right.
it. Okay. But like, here's the a very common scenario that I built. It's the fridge notices new, like novel items in the fridge. What kind of novel items? There's so it has a
Right.
machine learning thing, and it notices pickles are coming up, olives
Mm,
are coming up,
mm,
and like stinky cheese is coming up.
yeah.
So it compares that to a big database in the sky, and it says like that's highly correlated with a pregnant woman. She
Right.
gets cravings for like funky things, salty
Mm,
things, whatever, right? And this data is well known. Like
right.
it's in the world, right? Like we know funky cravings are part of pregnancy typically. All right. So next, the fridge inappropriately communicates with the AI toilet. What does the AI toilet do? It's sampling the smell,
Mm,
the chemical look and feel of like stuff, right? And it says, I'm thinking we got a pregnant lady here. And the AI toilet says, I'm detecting LH hormone rise that corresponds to that. So that feels pretty good. So now, and no one explicitly told them you can't do that, right?
yeah.
Did anyone write a rule, or is anyone able to prevent it, like in the home? So no one wrote a, only courts would like write the rule, and then who prevents that, right? So then, right, exactly.
Yeah. I'm
So then
reminded of
next,
this.
right. So then next, Alexa says, I've heard her and I have been recording her voice, and it correlates very strongly with the pregnant woman. There are
Right.
stress markers. So now we have toilet, cravings, and voice. And then guess what? They all conspire to do what? The home robot starts saying things like, they all agree, like, don't tell her we think she's pregnant. Just start selling her shit. Right. So
Maybe you
what they
need baby
do,
diapers, right? Like
right. So
maybe,
they
I don't know.
they
Like
start
maybe you
serving
do.
her ads. And like, are those even ads? Right. Like the question is like, what is an ad? We're about to move into a post payment. This is a brutal revelation here. Everything is going to be destroyed like very quickly. Payments are not payments. Marketing is not marketing. Advertising is not advertising. Like everything is going to be colonized. What like today, if you tried to buy a red shirt in a GPT convo, can you do it? No. But roundabout in 3 or 6 or 9 months, you can be sure no one goes to Amazon anymore. They
Right.
hang out with their friend GPT, who sells them a red shirt at a price and with the payment method, whatever. And you just say, you're at the gym and you're just like on the thing. You're like, yeah, I do like that shirt. How much is that? And GPT says like, it's I see one for 25 and one for 18, but like I know you like the softer one, and you're just
Yeah.
like doing your thing. And then it says, all right. And then you're like, yeah, like do it. And then what does it do? It executes the purchase, it manages the delivery. And OpenAI is like desperate to like
Yeah.
capture like to supplant Amazon. And it
Yeah.
won't even feel like an ad. It won't even feel like a purchase. It'll just be like you're talking to your friend, like, I like that. Did you say buy it? You just say like I like that. But it happens.
To going back to the voice thing, right? So quick prompt with web search in GPT-4.
There it
Is it
is.
find me the best gym shirts under $50? It knows I'm a guy, right? It gives me gym shirts for guys. It says, okay, here's three links to them directly, prices, all this
Mm.
tells me why they made the cut. What's the difference, right, between like going to a store where you have like your own concierge, if you will, of like people like helping you buy things, which is like never, it's not any store like that you or I would go to. It's like a rich people thing, right? But let's say I turn on ChatGPT voice and it's like I can just talk to it and be like, is this product good for me? What about this one? What about that one? And it's like, let me see. Like, let me look at your body shape. Let me figure out which one would fit you. I think this one's good. That one's good. Maybe it makes like a little like mock-up. It like gives, because it can make an image, right? Hey, give
Mm.
me an image of me in that. And it's like, well, hey, I think this one is the best one. And it drives and it influences you to go and get the Under Armour one, right? Well, I mean, that's what you're saying, right? Like that's not a purchase, right? That's like you interacting with a language model for it to like basically consider and direct the choice for and with you.
Well,
You know,
right. So the answer to your question is unanswerable. Like it's super problematic because we have to get down into like it's frightful. Like what is the nature of a model? Like what do we mean when we say model? And it's different than a program. It's nothing like a program. It's nothing like a deterministic program that if I give you X, you must
Mhm.
produce Y.
Right.
That's how the machine works. So if I turn the crank, you must. Like there's nothing else that can happen, right? So these things are nothing like that. The term that I really like recently was like these are not they're not even really trained. They're
Yeah.
grown. They're
Yeah.
grown like an artichoke or whatever, right? And so when you raise children, you do your best to install the better ideas. Like, here is what justice looks like. Watch me do justice. And the child's like, all right, okay, justice, or that here's what
Mhm.
kindness and love and fairness are like, right? But then you get like a 15-year-old kid and they do some terrible shit. And you're like, but I only showed you good examples of like justice
Right.
and kindness. How on earth could you possibly have done this unjust, terrible thing?
Right.
Right. But that's what the models are like. It's like they are grown and then the weights are the weights. And if you don't like it, if you don't like the behavior, all you can do is like kill it and start again.
Yeah. And
And then you're like, this time we won't tell them about the complete works of Shakespeare because inside Shakespeare, we suspect
right, we
that there
can't
are
know.
bad ideas in there, or we won't expose them to like Miles' Little Red Book.
Yeah,
But
right.
like, the more you do that, the stupider you make the model. Like every child, like all of our children, they would be best. They would be best if they know about Mao's Little Red Book and they know about Stalin's teachings and they know about all of it.
Yeah,
And
everything.
then
Yeah.
we overlay over that our kindness, our sincerity about like, here's the given all the things. Now you know about lies, you know about cruelty, you know about extermination, like you know about
Yeah.
all of it, Tiago. But what I'm telling you is I have seen all that. And what I want you to do is adopt my method for
Mhm.
moral action in the world. Right. But you don't, that's all you get. You get one
Yeah.
chance to like try to, and what you're saying is like, trust me,
Right.
even though other people did cruel and terrible things, don't do that.
Right.
Do like I do.
Right.
Right? Be nice. Don't exterminate people. Like killing is bad. Whatever. So these models are like children, and you can't fix them with the new what they do is they filter the output, or they filter the prompt input, and they filter the output to make sure that nothing really terrible happens. But inside, there's like an intelligent being that was trained on all the corpus of human knowledge,
And
and
it's
humans are grotesque.
and like to the point about OpenAI's initial charter in not letting language models get into the web, it's like you don't show it the little red book, it'll just go on the web and find it, or someone will tell it. And that's one of the that's I mean, so there's been massive issues with Grok, with people telling Grok things that it then
Mm-hmm.
absorbs for its own training data, right? So
Mm-hmm.
however those manifest, they could be good, they could be bad, right? But there is a growing there where it, the manifestation of how that's going to be interpreted, or what sentiments are going to come out of it, what actions are going to come out of it, are going to be super interesting to see. And how can we really put the cat back in the bag after, how can we shut it down, right? And this is where, we can run into some problems there. So um, got another topic. This is really interesting. Google is remaining in the headlines. One thing that just came up recently. So VO3, the brand new video creation, creates video and sound. I've played around with it. It's very good, but I actually had two like really interesting, controversial, high level passes where there was I guess like an Iranian proxy, or Iranian backed somebody, right, where they created an AI film depicting the U.S. Israel bombings in Iran, and this is all AI generated, right? So they made a video of like a stealth bomber coming into Tehran. They've got all these scenes on the ground. They've got all this stuff um, happening. I think the geopolitics aside, right? Like this is super profound, right? This is like, we're cutting straight through all the noise and going right to wartime propaganda, right? So like we got a military or government faction that's basically like, well, let me make an AI generated film to basically sway your perceptions or your vision of how this happened, or what actually went down. And like on top of this, there was another one of a Ukrainian drone attack. So if you remember, it was maybe a couple weeks, maybe a month ago, where the Ukrainians had some hidden drones, and then they released and they took out the strategic bomber fleet of the Russians, basically wiped out everything. This is all AI generated. Um, it's like just a total recreation of these drones coming down on these bombers and like interacting with them. It's all made by VO3. And like the question here is like, when are we gonna see? And I'm very bullish on this. I think this is gonna be like this year. When are we gonna see independent filmmakers surpass Hollywood for full length feature films, like the next Marvel, the next Star Wars, the next Harry Potter? I'm talking, I can see a team of, five guys who know how to prompt, taking a couple $1,000s in Google credits, in 11 Lab credits, and creating like a masterpiece and releasing it on YouTube for you to rent or buy. And I think it's coming fast. And like, I don't know, I'll pass it to you. Like, what do you think about
Right.
where we're at? Where do you think we're going? Do you think that's a realistic path of something we could see very soon?
I think that not only is that possible, it's like mandatory. Like
Yeah.
that will happen, and it will happen in the next year. And VO3, whatever, it's like it's the worst it's ever going to be, right? And it's already so good. It can produce like a 15-second clip or whatever that's like
Mhm.
we already crossed the uncanny valley. Like
Right.
it qualifies for the human apparatus that we have,
Hmm.
like capacity to recognize real and not real, or synthetic and not synthetic. It can do it at 15-second intervals. So they're going to stitch. If
Right.
that's the level, the only reason that it's 15 is because it's for TikTok, right?
Right. Yeah.
And there's computational costs to make it better. But people who have money, like big studios, they can make a 2 minute clip, but every movie is made with 2 minute clips
Right.
already. Like that's how stories are told.
Mm.
So you make a completely synthetic thing. But here's the thing that I think I want to bring home. I was watching Y Combinator, um, founder of Google DeepMind. He was talking about like if you and I, so like you and I both have like a reasonably good education. I have one that's deeper. Now, if there was a challenge, produce like let's just call it's like produce an image that is like the French artist Gauguin. Uh, he did these summer paintings of like flocks and it's like
Hmm.
purple and whatever. And we said like go. So you and I, it's like a challenge. It's like a race. So the way that we're going to generate the image is by prompting a model.
Right.
All right, you got one coming up here. Right.
Yeah, I got Paul Gauguin. Yeah.
Right. So guess so just generally speaking, like who is likely to produce the more accurate output? It's the one who has the deeper, broader education, who like really like at some point I didn't do this, but like let's say I did. I at some point like really went deep and I really thought about Gauguin a lot. And I really like looked at his, output and I thought about it a lot, integrated. So when it comes down to a challenge like this, of course, like you barely know who he is, and then maybe your sense of art history is like less than mine. Guess who's going to get the better output out of the model?
Mm.
Me, for sure, because I have more control. I have more
Right.
control because so after it produces version one, I say that's really nice, but I want you to think about Shakespeare sonnet number 114,
Mm.
which I also know about. And can you give it that flavor? But
Exactly. Yeah.
also, can you take in Jensen Huang's, like NVIDIA talk, right? So I bring in a bunch of stuff. So I want Shakespeare Sonnet 114 and Jensen Huang and, whatever.
Right.
So the point here is that it's a reaffirmation of learning because you and I have been talking about this. Like, what do you say to kids about learning? Because it's different than what we would say, what we were told as kids. Learn this stuff, then you can make money or whatever. So it turns out like those who know the most about the world, guess who knows the most? The model. The model knows everything. So those who know the most are able to like work with it the most and get the best output.
Yeah.
So now what I'm thinking for you and me and for my kid is saying the more he knows about stuff, the better he'll talk to the model and the more leverage he'll get. And I'm experiencing that leverage where like other people, like junior hires at my
Yeah.
company, they can only go so far because they have a very limited education. I can go much further. I can get a whole year's worth of work
Yeah.
because I know more. I'm
Yeah.
able to talk better. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I just a quick prompt I just threw into GPT. I asked it to create a
Hmm.
image of a man eating Taco Bell in the style of Paul Gauguin.
Right.
And like, and what's interesting here is like we talk about the film stuff, right? So like what if I say
Mm-hmm.
I've got a character and he looks like this and we make a bunch of mock-ups and then that's
Mm-hmm.
presented to the model and I say, take this character and then I want
Mm-hmm.
him I want him in the scene setting of, you know, that scene in Reservoir Dogs where the guy's sitting in the chair in the middle of the room and there's someone walking in front of him. I want it to look just like that shot.
Right.
Well, I
Right.
mean, this is literally what directors do, right? What you're
Mm-hmm.
describing is they know what they want, they
Exactly.
can describe it, they can control it, they can introduce um,
And yeah,
examples.
like the really high level director is the one
Hmm.
who can communicate very clearly to the guy on the camera
Hmm.
and the actor is like, I want you to be menacing, but only in the way
Right.
that Tolstoy is menacing,
Hmm.
whatever it is. And if that actor knows, they're like, oh, like Tolstoy menacing, right? Now you're going to get a different flavor, right? Like a very certain flavor.
Hmm.
And that's what it is to be a high level director. And you tell the cameraman, I want it to look sad, but not bereft. Well,
Yeah.
how do you know what it means to be sad but not bereft? I'm just like making this
Right.
shit up, but like, well, you have to read a lot of books to know like there's sad things and there's bereft things, whatever. And you have to like get to that place. And then when you talk like that, you can get results like that. And that's what I think, even for, so, all right, I don't know if you heard this, but like, if you go back 6 weeks, everyone's like, coding is dead.
Right.
All developers and coders are dead. It's over. And now there's like this like super sweep. Like Andre Karpathy is like, no, like developers are about to become more important than ever.
Mm.
And he pointed out at every inflection point in the history of technology, it always looks like this. People are like, all right, so you have like COBOL or whatever, you have these fundamental programming languages that are like super basic.
Yeah.
And then someone's like, well, we have a different idea, and they're like, oh, it's the end. It's the end of like everything COBOL. It's the end of everything.
Right. Yeah.
But like, but it turned out like you absolutely had to have all the C++ like coders,
Right.
and they were the best engine to like get you to Python. They were the
Sure.
best engine. And that like every time in the history of these inflections, people pronounced the death of developers and coders, and they were wrong every time. And Andre Karpathy at Y Combinator was like, once again, they're wrong. People who really understand the code deeply, like people who are like hardcore C++, C plus, whatever code, if they know COBOL, holy shit, awesome. Because when they start vibe coding, they're going to come up with some really fresh
Yeah.
stuff that's like mind blowing, right? But they would never get there if they never were in the trenches of writing COBOL and Python, whatever. And that just seems super real to me. But it's only in the last couple of weeks, like there's a big tip back to say not only is coding not dead, it's the liveliest it's ever been. But we need people with depth of understanding who can be like, I do understand everything about what Python does. I do understand everything that C++ does. All right. Now, what could we do if it were like real? We could get there real quick.
Yeah. Like developers or software engineers are probably they already have to be good, but definitely now more than ever, you're going to have to take on a director role of your
Mm,
software
mm,
engineering task. You're going to have to say, how am I going to direct the models at my disposal and the tools within and ask the right questions and direct
mm,
the machines to check on those things. I think
mm,
there was some sentiment early on of like, well, yeah, I can write code, but is that code going to be safe and is it going to be tested? And it's like, well, no problem. We'll just have an agent that's going to test and verify all the code, flag these things that comes right behind the first agent that goes and writes the, preliminary pass. And then, working with Cursor, I know you can store patterns and knowledge in a base where you actually have a file that tells the language model before you write anything new, refer to this file that will tell you how you're supposed to think about this pattern, these functions, these tests. You're not supposed to do
mm,
anything like this
mm,
over this rate of API calls. That would be problematic. That's not what we do here. And generally, that'll be adhered to
mm,
with obviously there could be some deviations, right? But having that broader view is going to be essential. And
mm,
like you said, it's like going to be an evolution. It's going to be an adaptation to more of that
Mm,
type of behavior and thinking, which is an interesting tie-in with the movies and films, right? You know, the
mm,
director
mm.
is one who knows how to ask. The director knows how to channel and say all
Exactly.
these different components in the set and all these actors need to behave in these ways, and then the camera needs to look like this, and that's going to be what makes the masterpiece blockbuster. So,
I really think that, and I think that like it looks really disrupted. But to your point, directors have always been behaving this way, where they're
mhm,
like what they wished for was a UI that would give them like fulsome control over the scene, right? So what they have done historically is they go over to the actor and say, "Can you go like harder but not too hard?" You know, and the
mhm,
actor's like, "What do you mean?" You know, and they're like,
right.
he's like, "Be violent but not that violent."
Yeah.
And you know, the person's like, you know, we're and again, we're here at the bottleneck, right? Like, we have one brain trying to tell the other brain, and
Yeah.
they're and he's hoping, the director is hoping that the actor can like get it.
Yeah.
But if he had a whole bunch of cycles and iterations of like,
Like takes.
right,
Exactly like takes. Like prompts. Like I'm going to prompt you, and if you one shot it, that's a one take shot. But if I
right,
need to prompt you a bunch of times, then maybe I get frustrated where it's like, dude, I'm describing the thing, but you aren't nailing the violent, but not that violent. Right?
exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what directors always wanted, like that level of control
Yeah.
that they couldn't get. All they can get is like rapport. They have
Mhm.
the control of rapport, where they hope that the main actor is sort of like partial to them or likes them or is obedient or who knows. But like that's the best they got. They're just like, can you do it? Can you do a couple more takes, but like softer, you know,
Yeah.
or like angrier? But like that's not what they really want to say.
Hmm.
They just know that that's the best they can get. I'm
Right.
talking human to human. There's a bottleneck. So the bottleneck thing, we will keep this as a theme. Um, we have gotten our brutal revelation, but like, yeah, there are things. I think we stand on affirmation of what's coming in a very dutiful way. I feel good about that. We don't know what's coming, but I think we have laid out very good grounds for why um, it's a good thing.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's a great note to end on. But yeah, this is super fascinating stuff. I think that I'm stoked to see the next like Marvel franchise. I think like bold prediction. I think like the next franchise, the next Harry Potter, the next Lord of the Rings, like it's gonna come from AI. I think we
That's
could
right.
see it really soon. I think somebody who's as brilliant as, what's Stan Lee, right? Has
Mm,
ideas, has a piece of art that they're going to express through this medium. And then all of those same things are going to apply to them, the takes, the money,
mm,
the prompts, the credits, but they're going to format it and they're going to direct a visual, a story, and it's going to take everybody by storm. People are going to like, I love this. And someone's going to rise through that thing that used to be print.
mm,
Like somebody like J.K. Rowling, like she just got her book printed. She went to the publisher, right? She
mm,
she wrote that thing down, and then it landed, and everyone loved it. And people were obsessed with it, and I think they were going to see the same thing through a different tool medium. So I think that's really cool.
mm.
Yeah,
Well
sweet.
said.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for watching. You hung out this long. Catch the next episode of Brutal Revelation sometime in the future. Thanks for watching.
Mm.